6:30 to 8 we did our sitting meditation, and then you had a choice. You could either stay sitting, which many people did, or you could get up and walk for another 15 minutes and then continue meditating until 9 o'clock. So some people would, every day, would sit from 6:30 till 9 o'clock, and the lights out was at 9:30. So as full as the day was, still some people would sit up and meditate all night long. In fact, there were many people there who didn't even lay down at all because of their commitment to their practice. Others would prostrate all night, and others would read sutras all night long. They worked really hard in every way, and yet all the time so cheerful, relaxed, and enthusiastic. And in their practice, especially in their practice of the vows and their spiritual goals. And it was really just such a great experience to be there. We performed all the required rituals and ceremonies to live an ordained life, reciting the Pratimoksha and Bodhisattva vows and sutras every fortnight. All the prayers and recitations, however, were done in Chinese. So fortunately I had copies of the necessary texts in English. But when you're sitting in a group of 75 people all chanting Chinese, if you're reading in English, it's really jarring. So this put me in a situation to learn Chinese and to chant along with them. While I was there, I also was invited to learn to play the accompanying musical instruments, similar to what we heard last night. But in my opinion, the way they played at my monastery was so much more beautiful. I was also invited to learn to write Chinese calligraphy, with the brush and ink. And that was just so lovely. It's such a beautiful meditation. I also learned a little bit of Cantonese, but generally talking was not encouraged. And neither was going out, nor writing letters, nor reading other books. And certainly there was no television, videos or radios while there. And I bought a cassette thinking that if I could tape some of the prayers I could learn them more quickly. They said, oh no, don't do that, don't do that. Just learn the slow, organic way, Don't clutter up your life with extra mechanical things. So during the summer retreat, we recited various classical Chinese texts. We started with 1 week of reciting of the Surangama Dharani. Then we did 1 week of reciting the Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra, or the Dijang Wan Ging. Then we read the Lotus Sutra for quite a number of weeks, and followed by the Flower Ornament Sutra. And I just found them invaluable. The depth of wisdom and understanding was beyond words, and I invite all of you at some stage, if you can ever read them, to do so. When we're not in retreat, we would read the Diamond Sutra twice a day, which is a classic text on emptiness. So in this monastery, many of the old traditions are held and are encouraged. For example, if we got new robes, we had to re-dye them. And if we were given extra numbers of robes, we had to give them away. If we had too many robes because we needed them for certain functions, then we had to mark them by sewing an extra piece on the collar so that everyone would know that we've got excess robes and not give us any more. However, and also things like correct sitting order were really carried out in a very, not a rigid way, not in a superimposed way, but every single person knew where to sit. They sort of made it their obligation to find out who was ordained before you, because it was a matter of respect, and because of the quality of the practitioners, they all deserved and were worthy of correct sitting order. So they had someone responsible in the monastery, if on a certain prayer day many new people came, then it would be their job to find out who correct places. But of course, if you live there every day, you very quickly learn where to sit. So, and also individually, we're all very much encouraged to take extremely good care of all of our things. So that meant, we'd place our shoes nicely. We'd look after our books really well. We'd wear our clothes really nicely, always making sure that we look presentable, because we're custodians of the Buddha's wisdom. And it's a very, very, the whole etiquette of bathing and even toileting was extremely important. So we had like a separate bowl for washing the top part of our head, of our body, especially our head, and separate bowls and cloths, for washing the lower parts of our body. Just to remind us, that our mind is the part that will bring us to enlightenment, and our feet are the connection with samsara. So sometimes the bhikshunis and bhikshus would work together. For example, about once a year, for about 10 days, we'd all go up into the mountains and cut the grass, dry it, and make big bundles and store it. And then that grass would be used for cooking all the vegetables and rice for the next year. And generally speaking, all of the food that we ate was, like all the vegetables were grown by the people that lived there, and it was organic and really good quality, pure food. The Chinese in particular are very careful about the food they eat, not eating any of the black foods like onions and garlic and spices, things like that. The reason for that is, especially in a Chan retreat centre or monastery, you're really trying to settle the inner mind so that you can experience very deep, supreme bliss. So if you're eating food that's agitating the mind and agitating what's called the internal winds, then you're stopping yourself, inhibiting that experience. So on the weekends, often many devotees from Hong Kong would come, and they would bring all kinds of offerings. So whatever we needed as monks and nuns was often provided free of charge, and they were delighted to give it. So medicine, food, shoes, if you needed batteries or a torch or a pen or paper or anything like that, they were all provided. However, if money was given, what we would do as a group is pool the money, and then we'd either buy dharma texts, or we'd buy fish or other animals and liberate the animals. We give money to help rebuild temples in China. If there were natural disasters, we'd send money, to flood victims or whatever. So it was really an incredibly integrated experience, and the accumulation of money in particular was not encouraged at all. After the summer retreat finished, a group of bhikshunis and bhikshunis went to the holy mountain of Wutai San, which is up near Beijing, and they had a meeting of 1,000 bhikshunis and bhikshunis, and it was sort of like a major re-event, because in the past this sort of thing hasn't been possible. I couldn't go, unfortunately, because I slipped a disc in my back. But anyway, I rejoice that slowly, the awareness in China is coming back in the value of monastic life. I did, however, later go to China and was invited to attend an ordination of about 250 bhikshunis at Nanhua Si. This is in Canton. It's the temple of the sixth patriarch. And while I was there, I met one Acharya bhikshuni. She had been forced to disrobe during the Cultural Revolution, but she secretly kept the ordination in her heart. She rebuilt the temple, which had been destroyed, and then later retook ordination, and now runs the temple and has several bhikshus and bhikshunis living with her. So yeah, I just found it wonderful to meet people like that. So I've only got 5 minutes, so I'll go quick. After this, I got the opportunity to go and live in the nunnery branch of this temple in Canada. And so this nunnery was run just by nuns. You know, there was no bhikshus there. We did all the ceremonies, all the prayers, and running all the management ourselves. And I really hope that in the future that we can invite some of these, particularly the abbess from that nunnery, to come and talk to you, because she's a fine example of how we can do it. You know. In China, generally the monasteries are patriarchal. So this one woman, you know, who went to the West and opened a Chinese-style nunnery deserves our respect, and I think that if she ever came here, you'd make a great friend. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a lot to say, but anyway, I'll finish up because you might like to ask a question or two. And personally, I can't think of anything more valuable or important than trying to live in the Bhikshuni vows. And I think it's an incredible challenge. I'm always amazed at the profound insight of the Buddha, who advised us into which actions of our body, speech and mind we should adopt or abandon in order to bring us to enlightenment. The Buddha, he worked it out, you know. He discovered where the ego lies, and he worked out what we had to do to cut it off. You know? It's an incredible. I don't know, the words just escape me, but the wisdom contained in the vows is something that really is only revealed through living them. And that's why I'm so grateful to be ordained and to follow the Buddha's path. I pray that in next year's conference that some Chinese Bhikshuni sisters from the mainland are extended the opportunity to attend this conference, because I know that their stories, their courage and determination in their practice of the Buddha Dharma to receive and practice the Bhikshuni ordination would completely inspire you, and we would make a lot of new, true friends. So I thank you very much for inviting me to speak in this conference on the International Sakadita Conference of Buddhist Women as Peacemakers. And I pray that the Buddhas may bless each and every one of you, so that every woman in every country has the opportunity to receive the Bhikshuni ordination, to practice Buddhism without obstruction. And just as the self-emanating Tara emerges from the rock, let this be so.
At the end of the talks this morning, if we have some time and the speakers could entertain questions then. We have to move along. And our next speaker is our own president of Sakadita, Anjali De Silva, who will be speaking with us about the value of, I don't have my glasses on, reclaiming the road, restoration of the Bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka.
And the nuns and Dhamma sisters and brothers. I am happy to be here today to speak on this subject of reclaiming the robe, ordination of nuns and bhikkhunis of Sri Lanka. First, I will read something on the history of the bhikkhuni nuns order, and later I will come to the real situation of the restoration of the Bhikkhuni Sangha in Sri Lanka. The Buddha gave ordination to women in the 6th century BC. 2,584 years ago. It was his aunt and foster mother, Queen Prajapati Gautami, who received ordination from the Buddha as woman to become a bhikkhuni. This order of bhikkhunis, fully ordained nuns, continued for generations in India. The history of the bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka began when the Theri Sanghamitta, sister of Arahat Mahinda and daughter of Emperor Dhammasoka of India, ordained the Queen Anula and 500 women of the royal court of King Devanampiya in the 3rd century BC. There is Sanghamitta, when she arrived in Sri Lanka, she brought with her the sacred bow sapling from Buddha Gaya, which we now know as the Sri Mahabodhi at Anuradhapura, on record as the oldest tree in the world. Thereafter, the nuns' order continued in Sri Lanka. They lived in independent nunneries with separate administrative organizations. Bhikkhunis flourished with the support of the king, the community, and the bhikkhus. Anuradhapura was the capital at that time, and this period is known as the golden era of Sri Lanka, when both orders of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis were in existence. With the fall of capital to the Chola invaders in 10th century, 1017 AD, both orders of monks and nuns became defunct. In several occasions, the kings and the rulers of Sri Lanka restored the monks' order. Twice it was from Siam and Burma. The monks' order that is now in existence in Sri Lanka is also brought from Siam, the Siam sect, and the Ramanya sect from Burma, and later Amarapura sect, the 3 sects. If the same rule applies to the nuns, the order of nuns which exists in China could be brought back to Sri Lanka. The legitimacy of the Chinese higher ordination, the bhikkhuni order has continued to exist up to present day in China with an unbroken Upasampada lineage. The 2 batches of Sinhala nuns headed by Theosora Devasara went to China in 429 AD and 433 AD and gave higher ordination to more than 300 Chinese nuns at the Nanjing Monastery in China. From China, nuns' order has been transmitted to Korea and Japan. They now belong to the Mahayana tradition. They observe today the Dhammagupta Vinaya tradition, which is a subdivision of Theravada. All Vinaya rules as found in the Dhammagupta Bhikkhuni Patimokkha are probably the same as those in Theravada Patimokkha. There are 311 rules in Theravada and 348 rules in Dhammagupta. These additional rules are in Pachitya and Sekya. They are most minor rules pertaining to good manners related to daily life. So now I could say there is no problem for the restoration of the bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka, since we have established the lineage of bhikkhuni order. But it has been a controversial subject. The re-establishment of the bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka has been a controversial subject during the last few decades. The main objection is that the lineage of the Theravada bhikkhunis has been broken, and no Theravada bhikkhunis are available to confer ordination to bhikkhunis. It is sometimes argued that until Maitreya Buddha is born, the re-establishment of the order of bhikkhunis cannot be revived. no longer exist in any Theravada country. Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Cambodia or Laos. In fact, the only Theravada country where the order of Bhikkhunis ever existed was in Sri Lanka. There is a record in Burma, but it has not been established that there were only 10 bishop nuns only exist in Burma. According to the senior monks, the Supreme Advisory Council were the three high prelates of the monks, the three sects. They say the Theravada tradition re-establishment of the Bhikkhuni order will never be possible according to the Theravada tradition. This advisory council is well known on the revival of the Bhikkhuni order. It is the same council that hesitated even to approve the holding of the third Sakyadita conference in Sri Lanka in 1993. Yes. As they say, if it is against the Dhamma and the Vinaya to revive the Theravada Bhikkhuni order, they should be able to quote chapter and verse from the Dhamma and the Vinaya to substantiate their stand. They have not been able to prove that, so we have been able to go ahead with the present restoration of the Bhikkhuni order. This was the objection is based that Theravada tradition, according to the Theravada tradition, the higher ordination has to be first conferred by the Bhikkhunis and then by the Bhikkhus. This was the practice at the time when both orders were fully functioning. When both monks and nuns orders were fully established and was a permanent feature of the Shasana, the number of Bhikkhunis grew rapidly. At the higher ordination, some women were shy and not willing to answer the required 24 questions like, are you having menstruation, are you pregnant, and similar. It was then that the Buddha instructed that women get ordained by Bhikkhunis first and then they get the Bhikkhus to confirm it. But at a time when Bhikkhunis are not available in Theravada countries, Bhikkhus can still admit women as samaneris, novices, by administering the 10 precepts. If it is not accepted by the traditionalists on account of their prejudices to revive the Bhikkhuni order with the assistance of the Bhikkhunis from China or any other land where the Bhikkhunis exist, there is still an alternative method. That would be to take the example of the Buddha and the disciples who founded the Bhikkhuni order. I permit you monks to confer senior ordination on Bhikkhunis, the Upasampada, as given in the Chulavagga Vinaya, Bhikkhuni Kandaka, Anujanami Bhikkhave Bhikkhuni, Bhikkhuniyo Upasampadetum. I permit you monks to confer senior ordination on Bhikkhunis. In Sri Lanka, today, before the restoration of the Bhikkhuni order, we had the 10 precept nuns. They have a history of nearly 100 years. It was in 1903 when a lady called Catherine Yanis Gulasekara, who went to Burma even to get the 10 precepts. The monks at that time even did not want to give the 10 precepts to the women. So this order of Dasil Mata, the 10 precept nuns, still continue in Sri Lanka, and we have nearly 4,000 Dasil Matas in Sri Lanka. They are shaven-headed and yellow-robed, who have renounced their life to practice as nuns. They were not even given the Samaneri ordination which is given to the novice monks. But they follow the same precepts and follow a life same as that of a novice monk. So in 1993, so this is a story since the Sakyadita conference in Colombo since 1993. I can tell my story of the restoration of the order. What I gave was just a historical background on this time. So after the 1993 conference in Colombo, we invited over 300 nuns to the conference, and it brought light to the nuns. They never thought that they were recognized before. They met all bhikkhus and all bhikkhunis, sangha from various traditions, and they felt they are very important. Since then, we were going ahead, trying to train them in their education and motivating them. The monks themselves told me, oh, we did not know that there were so good nuns in Sri Lanka. But there had been several attempts and some research done on these Silmatas, and have been several attempts to restore the Bhikkhuni Sangha. But it was not the time maybe. It is, I think, the restoration of the Bhikkhuni Sangha today is, I think, what the nuns themselves have earned. Though how much we talk and how much research we do, if there are not suitable nuns for the Bhikkhuni to become Bhikkhunis, it will not be realized. So I always give the credit to our Silmatas, the 10 preceptors, who have earned their Bhikkhuni status. They have been like that for 20, 30, 40 years as nuns and renounced and have been not been accepted by the society, but still living the life of a nun. So it is from since then, we formed the Sakagita Sri Lanka, and we did not have the facilities, but we invite 10 nuns from each district, and we on our own, some other try to train them and motivate them. So they did not have confidence in themselves. They never thought it was possible because they had been brainwashed, and they associated closely with the monks, in the temple, and they did not want to antagonize the monks. So they think that is something that cannot happen. So we have to go personally, like, have to go and talk to them and say, no, you are worth this, you can't get this. Then at the same time, we had to talk to monks also, the senior progressive monks, who really helped us at the end. So sometimes I used to go and ask when the person, is it true that it cannot be restored? Please be honest and tell me the truth. So once a teacher of mine whom I had gone to Sunday school as a child, he is a very senior monk who had written the Vinaya rules, the Sangha Dipharana, he's the author. I told him personally, he likes me as a pupil. He told me, yes, it is not impossible, it is possible. So, all the doubts, I had no doubts of it at all. I cleared it at all if there were any doubts. He said, it is in the latter part of the Chulavagga, it is the Altagavudama, the 8 rules are written, and they are not Buddha's words. So, with all the research done by various scholars, it is true that we can go ahead and restore the Bhikkhuni order. So for me, it was very clear. I felt there was no doubts about it. It is only a determination and to go ahead. So many monks, we must mention in Venerable Vipulasara, the president of the Mahambodhi at the time, he thought these 10% nuns visit Buddha Gaya very often, and they see the very smart personalities of these Silmata. They never thought of the Bhikkhuni Sangha first, and they wanted the service of the 10% nuns in India, the Buddha Gaya centers. For that reason, they invited many nuns for interview. So they invited us also to interview, and Venerable Bhikkhuni Kusuma, who was Mrs. Deven Kusuma, and I was at the interview board, and there were about 200 nuns who came for interview to serve at the Mahabodhi Center. So we just immediately gave an application form, and they filled it up, and there were so many degrees, BA, MA, some, and diplomas, and various Dhamma, Pali, all that. So they immediately interviewed and found the most suitable 25, and we selected 25. Then we said they cannot go, they have to serve 3 years in India. Then of course they withdrew themselves, and with difficulty we found 10 nuns finally. And in the meantime, then they said there is no community called as 10 preceptors. Either they had to be Bhikkhunis or upasikas. So at that time, Bhikkhuni Saraswati with the help of the Korean Bhikkhuni Sangha, the Korean sector of the World Buddhist Sangha Council, rest of the Bhikkhuni order with 10 Kastil Matas from Sri Lanka at Sarnath in 98 December. Since they were trained for 2 years in Buddha Gaya, in India, and in the meantime, the monks in Sri Lanka formed a association of Bhikkhuni Sangha Mandalaya, and they trained nuns, novices, to become ordained. Out of them, in 98 in February, at the international ordination, the 20 Sri Lankan nuns became higher ordained nuns. So now we have 30 to 30, and since then the Sri Lankan monks started ordaining nuns in Sri Lanka itself. So we had the support of the monks as a community, even though it is not officially accepted. Because the three Mahasangha, they are quite elderly, and we respect them for they are free to be believe in their tradition. If not for that, there are so many the deputies are supporting us. They say they cannot go against the elderly senior monks. So for that reason, they do not openly support, but they support us. So today, I want to say that they have been trained. The Sankarita has organized a training in social development work of these bhikkhunis. We do not want to leave them just after ordination only by giving them the robe and the bowl. We want them to serve the community. They have been doing that in their own way in their villages. They live in small nunneries around in many parts of the country, in remote villages, where they are serving the community with their own knowledge. So now we have given professional training in social development work, human behavior, leadership, communication, and counseling. And we follow them at the field level. We give them assignments, and the lecturers were of the university lecturers. It's a national institute in collaboration with the National Institute of Social Development. We did that training, and the lecturers themselves, I took them to the field to see how they are performing, and they found that they said they have been giving this training to many students, university students, but nothing like that they have seen before, like the nuns, how effective they are in their knowledge and how they are bringing this knowledge and giving their knowledge to the community. There are many instances where they say before, when there was a drunken man close to their nunnery, they do not, they close their doors and wait inside. But after the training now, they walk to their house and then they speak to the family, the man, and now they drink, they do not drinking man, he drinks less and he comes to the temple on the full moon day. So like that, they have managed to serve the community in a very effective manner. And today we have 3 bhikkhunis from Sri Lanka. Bhikkhuni Kusuma was the first to get ordained in 1996 in December in Saranath, and the Bhikkhuni Sardasumana, who ordained in 1998 at Buddha Gaya in the international ordination. Bhikkhuni Purna Buddhika, who got ordained in Sri Lanka at itself. So the Bhikkhuni Vinaya, I think Bhikkhuni Kusuma will speak on the Bhikkhuni Vinaya. You can ask any questions from her. I am just telling how they are performing in Sri Lanka. Now they are very well accepted, and they have the robe ceremonies, and full in procession people come, and every evening you find many people. This was our vision, how the nuns could serve. Actually the theme of the conference really suit them. We really perform the way that your theme is. They are peacemakers, self, family, community, and world. They are doing that today because they have been trained to do so, and there are so many, about 50 to 75 women and family, children, all come gather around the nunnery. There will be 2 or 3 nuns, but they all come there in the evening. They make their puja, they come out with their problems, they discuss. If they if the daughter is unhappy, then the son is disobedient, the mother comes and says, then daughter comes and stays in the nunnery the night. So this is what the monks have failed. Monks cannot do that. They are women. Because nuns, they are women, they are mothers, they can understand their problems in the family. So this has been a great service, and we think because of this, the nuns will flourish. Especially there was a gap in the community without the bhikkhunis. So that gap is now fulfilled with these high ordained bhikkhunis. And these bhikkhunis, not only they do this counseling, but sometimes they cut the well in the village, they do a road, and they get the support. They consult them. They are sometimes appointed as the peacemakers. They have the community appointed by the local authorities. They have positions there. Yes. So this is so sometimes the easy thing is they say because Ananda, Bhikkhu Ananda only asked, and that is why for the third time the Buddha gave this ordination to women. So I always say that is a story that some of the monks say, which is very silly. You are insulting the Buddha. Buddha never listened to anybody. Buddha did exactly the correct thing. He is Sarvajna. So we do not want to say Buddha just gave ordination because Ananda they asked him. So that is another story. I do not have time to describe all that. But you remember that Buddha had all the the Sravaka, Sravika, equal rights. Buddha many occasions say women are equal to men in wisdom. And he had the Sarya Mugalan and Kema Utpanavanna as the two main disciples, both equal with equal wisdom and equal supernormal powers. So it was Prajapati Gautami and it passing away. It was the only instance where the Buddha followed. Buddha went behind her, the aunt, passing away. And he says, if there are no doubts, Mother, show thy powers over sky and moon, the universe, to clear the doubts. And she displayed to clear the, okay. So we wish that the restoration of the Bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka is taking root, and maybe though the government has not recognized fully, we know it's they have to read because we are going ahead and no doubts about it. I want to mention here that we pass a resolution at the closing sessions of this International Association of Sakadita. There are so many countries and Buddhist women and nuns are here. We pass a formal resolution to our president, who is a woman in Sri Lanka, and hand over the present situation of Bhikkhuni Sangha in Sri Lanka and ask for to consider the recognition of Bhikkhunis in Sri Lanka.
Well, yes, not enough time. Our next speaker is Elise DeVito, and she will be speaking on the infinite worlds of Buddhist nuns in Taiwan province. By the way, if anyone would like to have a focus group with any of the speakers this morning, please see them. That might be possible at 4 o'clock, so we can talk about that at the end of the session.
Namaste. Good morning. I'm very honored and blessed to be here with all of you today. And thank you to the Sakadita organization and Carmen Solo. I'm so glad to be here. And today I would like to talk about the infinite worlds of Taiwan's nuns. And this is only an introduction. I've only started this research. So today I give you a very general introduction. And many of you know that in Taiwan, there are many nuns. In fact, according to the most reliable estimates, there are 22,500 fully ordained nuns in Taiwan. Why? but there were only 7,500 fully ordained monks. So so that means there are 75% nuns and 25% monks. And this is very unusual in the Buddhist world. So I think that Taiwan has become the heartland of at least the Pure Land tradition in the world. Because as many of you know, you can go to Taiwan to become fully ordained. And this is very remarkable because before 1952, there were no Sangha in Taiwan. There were no Vinaya. It only occurred after 1952. And especially in the last 20 years, we have this great growth of nuns in Taiwan. So I think this is a very remarkable phenomenon. So I wanted to find out why, in such a short period of time, we have 22,500 fully ordained nuns. So I went around to some nunneries in Taiwan, and I talked with many different nuns and their masters. And they often speak of how Taiwan is an infinite world for the nuns. And the Chinese word is Tiankong, and Tiankong means the heaven. They say Taiwan is heaven for nuns. And I translate it as infinite worlds because Taiwan is a free and open space for nuns. And also, there are many different types of nuns in Taiwan. We have some Taiwans who live in the city in these very big nunneries. We have some nunneries that are smaller in the mountains and the countryside. And also, there are some places are all nuns, some places are all monks, and some places are monks and nuns live together. So there are many different types. We cannot say there is one type of nun. But then, so I have come with a series of questions or hypotheses why Taiwan has so many nuns. And today I will mention nine reasons. Because as I said before 1952, there are no Sangha and no Vinaya in Taiwan. So why? Well, before 1952, the religion in Taiwan, and it still is the most popular religion, is the folk religion, the Chinese folk religion, where they worship many gods, including Guanyin, the Guanyin Fall, and Mazu. Mazu is the goddess of the sea to protect the fishermen. And so Chinese folk religion, which most people believe in, you worship many gods, including Guanyin. But we can't say this is Buddhism proper, because they worship many gods. But we have this heritage of the Chinese worship of Guanyin, and from 1895 to 1945, Taiwan was a colony of Japan. So the Japanese monks brought Zen Buddhism to Taiwan, and also Shinto to Taiwan. So before 1952, we had many women who perhaps believe in Guanyin, Buddha, or who eat no meat, or who wear black robes. But they are not nuns, they're lay women. So we have that tradition. We also have, after 1949, the monks came from mainland China to Taiwan, and they brought with them the Vinaya. And there were too few monks, only a few monks. They had to rely on these Buddhist women already in Taiwan, because there are many lay women in Taiwan. But the monks came from mainland China, they don't understand Taiwan. They must rely on the lay women. Now, after 1949, there are two main groups of monks. One group was the group close to the nationalist government, so a very political type of monk. And the other monk has to work underground in secret. And many monks were arrested and never seen again during the 1950s because Taiwan was a military dictatorship in those days. So at first it was very hard for Buddhism to flourish in Taiwan. Another reason, there is a master, Yin Shun. He is from mainland China. He came to Taiwan too. His philosophy, he has a philosophy of earthly Buddhism or worldly Buddhism. He stresses we must create the Pure Land on earth now. We should not wait for the Western paradise. We should create the Pure Land on earth today, now. And so masters like Xingyun in Wobanshan and many other masters and nuns, they carried out Yin Shun's doctrines. So that is why in Taiwan they stress the monks and nuns doing charity, education, publishing, media, environmental movement, opposition to nuclear power. Taiwan is very small, but we have 4 nuclear power plants. So it's very dangerous. Also, animal rights, because there are many, many, many dogs in Taiwan, and no one takes care of them, and they're very sick. Also, disaster relief. Taiwan has typhoons, earthquakes, and so they stress doing charity work engaged with society. Another reason is the Buddhists in the 1960s began to establish study groups in the high schools and the vocational schools and in colleges. Buddhist study groups. And so many young people were attracted to Buddhism through these study groups. And they have study groups, they have books and tapes of music and the sutras, songs. And so many nuns and monks were attracted to Buddhism through these study groups. And also in the 60s and 70s, the monks in Taiwan realized that they must recruit more women to become nuns, because in Chinese society, unlike many Buddhist societies, in Chinese society it's mostly Confucian, right? So in Confucius says, you must get married and have children. So if you become a monk or nun, you are not being filial. You are not honoring your parents if you become a monk or nun. The word to become monk or nun in Chinese is 出家, and that means to leave the family. And that, Confucianism says this is bad. So it's, and also to shave your hair is unfilial because your parents gave you your hair. And to burn your head is also unfilial because that is harming your body that your parents gave you. So in Chinese society, it is not an honor to become a monk or nun, unlike in other countries. But the monks realized that more women would be attractive than men. Also, Taiwan in the 1970s and 1980s, Taiwan used to be an agricultural society, but then in the 70s and 80s, the economy took off very rapidly. So society just became more economically developed. And also in 1986, the military dictatorship ended. So after 1986, Taiwan becomes a democracy after 1987. So now religion can flourish. Religion has no restrictions anymore. Now the other reason perhaps is the influence of Western feminism. Western feminism. Now when I ask them, the monks, they say, yes, yes, yes. It's all those Western feminists that encourage our women. But then when I ask the nuns, they say, no, we are Buddhists first. We are Buddhists. We are Buddhist nuns. They do not say they are feminists. But I can talk leaders. They run their own monasteries. They're active in the media, in publishing, in charity. They built hospitals, universities. They built universities. They are professors. So they're very active in society. They're very active. Now, I asked the nuns, why did you become a nun? And in Chinese society, there is a stereotype that, oh, she became a nun because she doesn't want to get married, or she became a nun because she has some problems. But this is not true at all. The women in Taiwan became nuns to teach the Dharma, to become enlightened. And many, because of their higher education, they want to contribute to society. They want to contribute to society. Because every nunnery and monastery has their own mission. Some monasteries stress environmental rights, other monasteries stress disaster relief. A very famous monastery in eastern Taiwan stresses medicine. They have a nurses' school and a medical school. So every monastery and nunnery has a different mission. It's called zhiye. And another unusual thing is in Taiwan, if you become a nun, you can receive higher education, sometimes in Taiwan or sometimes you go abroad. Like the venerable, our venerable here, she's studying in England now because her nunnery sent her to England to study. So perhaps maybe they could not receive that higher education otherwise. Now, the question once again is, do nuns in Taiwan identify with the world Buddhist movement? I asked the nuns in Taiwan, do you know about Sakyadhita? And some of them did, but many of them did not. So I think right now, the nuns in Taiwan still are not very involved with the international nuns movement, but I hope that changes in the future. And then the other question I asked to the nuns, do you identify yourself with the feminist movement in Taiwan? Because there's a very small feminist movement in Taiwan. So far, I think they do not. They think themselves as Buddhists first, and they try to improve society overall. They're not particularly involved with women's issues per se, but to improve the life of all Taiwanese people. However, when we go to these nunneries, I'm very impressed to see they are self-reliant and self-administered. They have highly talented, very hard-working women. I remember a very striking image. It's very hot in Taiwan in the summer, and the nuns have the hats. You know, in Vietnam and Taiwan, you have the hats, the douyi. And they sit there in the hot, hot sun with these electric saws, cutting the wood for the fire. These very small Taiwanese women with their power tools. It's very common. They're sitting there with their eyes closed, which is so unusual because usually in Taiwanese society, the heavy labor, such labor will be done by the men. But in Taiwan, the nuns are very hardworking and self-reliant. Now, once again, they do not see themselves as feminists. In fact, but they do think women are. They think that women can achieve enlightenment faster than men, actually, because of feminine qualities. I asked the masters, why are there so many nuns in Taiwan? And they said, well, women have a compassionate and warm heart. Women have more patience, endurance, and attention to detail than men. Women are naturally suited as caregivers, caregivers and nurturing, and they're very good at healing and teaching roles. Women are more suited than men to live in communal groups, because men tend to want to be the boss all the time. Let's see. Women are braver, more hardworking, and steadfast than men. And my favorite quotation is, nuns are so successful in Taiwan to propagate Buddhism because they have their gentle feminine nature, which makes people feel like they've been bathed by spring winds. So precisely, it is the feminine nature, it is their feminine nature that makes them more suited to become nuns. Whereas in other countries, we might hear women are too weak, women are too gentle, so they cannot become monastics. But in Taiwan, it's the reverse. And then I asked them, well, in the future, will there be more and more nuns, or have we reached a plateau? Because perhaps in the future, it will be socially acceptable to be a single career woman, and you would not have to join a communal group in order to play a more active role in society. But the master that I interviewed said, well, she's not concerned with numbers rising, she's concerned with quality and very good training of nuns for the future. And anyone who would become a nun or monk, their main reason is to propagate the Dharma still. So you will be attracted for religious reasons. If you want to work for charity, you don't have to become a monk or a nun. So your first reason should be always to propagate the Dharma. And I hope that in the future, Taiwan's nuns are more integrated with the world Buddhist movement. And, well, as far as Taiwan is concerned, a monk who is the head of the Chinese Buddhist Studies Association says, who is a monk, he says, the future of Taiwan's Buddhism belongs to the nuns. So even the monks admit that. So, and I think the future of world Buddhism will depend greatly upon the nuns, and depend greatly on all of you, and all the lay women in Taiwan. So thank you very much.